Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. Do you see what I'm saying?
It happens all the time. And I didn't really want to bring it up.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
I'm glad you addressed it.
Listen,
because it happens a lot.
We're speaking about serious things today. Hello and welcome to Unseen, Unheard, the podcast where we discuss the Black disabled experience in the UK's music industry. My name's Joy Addo and I'll be your host. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. It's probably easier to ask her what she can't do rather than what she can do because that is a very long list. She's going to tell us all about it, but please welcome to the studio Alex Ampofo. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah, you did.
It's the Ghanaian in me.
Yeah, and it's phonetic. You know, when people get it wrong, I'm like, it's just 3 syllables and it's phonetic, so...
But it's always like that, you know, people get the simplest things wrong, but, you know. Alex, welcome to this episode. I always ask everyone the same thing to start off with, and I want a genuine answer.
Okay.
How are you feeling today?
I am tired as hell. I'm so tired. And I did have 8 hours last night, but life's good. Like, I'm happy, I'm healthy, but I'm extremely tired. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm good. I'm tired as well, but other than that, I'm good. Do you know what? I just get on with it. That's what it is. But yeah, I'm good. Thank you for asking. Now, Alex, I think that me and you have something in common. Okay, because I was looking at your Instagram yesterday.
Yeah.
And obviously your name's Alex, my name's Joy. But do you get that people sometimes mispronounce it as
Joy, what are you going to say? What are you going to say?
No, I'm just saying it happens to me a lot. So some people mispronounce my name, and I'm sure they do it to you, as Fine Babes.
Right.
You're a Fine Babes.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. Do you see what I'm saying?
It happens all the time. And I didn't really want to bring it up.
That's what I'm
but
saying.
I'm glad you addressed it.
Listen,
because it happens a lot.
We're speaking about serious things today.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying it's a real thing. It happens. So guys, check out her Instagram and then you understand what I'm saying.
How do you deal with that?
Do you know what? It's just... try not to let it go to my head.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, no, it's not Fine Babes, it's Joy.
Yeah.
That's what you just have to...
That's what I need to do. I need to apply that to my life because I get a bit scared. I don't really want to say my name's Alex, not Fine Babes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good advice.
It's just like walking down the street, Fine Babes. No, relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there doesn't need to be a drama when I'm outside, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I hear you.
Alex, so apart from being called Fine Babes all the time, right? Tell us a bit, tell everyone that's listening about what you do. Can I just say, I would hate to edit your CV, okay? Because it seems like there's a lot on it. You do a lot, Alex. Tell us, sum it all up. What do you do for work in the music industry?
Okay, so I am a live music promoter. So in a nutshell, that basically means I organise tours, shows, events, gigs, that kind of thing. So if we have an artist that's... you know, in the middle of their album rollout or EP, whatever it is, a project, they'll come to someone like myself and say, hey, I want to do a tour or a show, and I'll be the person that organises that. I've been doing that for the last 6 years at the company I'm currently at, but I'd say in total I've been doing it for about 10 years. I kind of started working in the music industry, like programming events at different venues, and then moved into live and working with different artists and agents. That's what I do on my day-to-day, and I also run a female-led collective called Women Connect, and we provide free opportunities for trans people, non-binary people, and women in the music industry. But those are the main things. There's a couple more things.
I said you do a lot. How many pages is your CV?
Do you know what? It is like 2.5 and it needs to be reduced, but you know when you just don't have the time.
Mine's about 2 sentences.
Stop it. Not 2 sentences.
Alex, have you always wanted to work in live events? Is this something that you've always wanted to do, or did it did it develop over time? Because back in the day, I used to want to do event management, and then I changed my mind. But anyways, yeah. How did you kind of decide that you wanted to go on this path?
So I didn't always want to be in the live music industry purely because I didn't even know these kind of jobs existed. But I always knew I wanted to be somewhat musically inclined. I play the violin, so I've always kind of had like a musical background, but I've never, well, when I was younger, I didn't really know like what was available to me. So I did a couple internships here and there, thought I wanted to work at a label. Definitely don't want to work at a label.
Shout out to all the labels out there.
And then turned 18, started working in bars just to kind of put myself through uni. And that's how I got to know a lot of people in the music industry, and found out about jobs, you know, through just meeting people at certain establishments, and found out about promoting, and I did an internship and then kind of went from there.
Right. And how have you found navigating the music industry as a Black woman? And then we'll come on to later about your disability. But tell me about that. Have you had any challenges in the industry, being a woman, being Black? What's that been like?
It's been an interesting journey because I think there's like two sides of the same coin. For my personal journey, I've, you know, faced all kinds of, you know, discrimination, racism, all of that stuff. You know, we all do. It's just, you know, something that happens in life, unfortunately. But I've also been like incredibly blessed to have like such a great team who like amplify me and make sure I'm okay if like I have an incident, or I've ever, you know, got myself into a situation where I feel uncomfortable. I've always had like great mentors and people around me to kind of coach me through those kind of things. When I first started like 10 years ago, I remember I was working somewhere, and I mean, obviously I won't mention like the name of the establishment, but where I was working, someone in the senior management team, I mean, I've got Afro hair, you know, so, but I had braids when I first started working there. And one day I'd come in without my braids. I'd take my braids out, you know,
Don't
done my
tell
little
me you
twist
changed
out.
your hair and they couldn't
Not
deal
me
with it.
changing
Oh
my
my
hair.
God.
I've come in and someone in the senior management team was like, "Oh, you've got a nest on today."
Oh my God.
And Joy, I actually wanted to scream. I think I even fell to my knees because why would you say such a thing? And I was so shocked, but I was also young, so I didn't even know how to like approach it, because he was trying to like slide a joke in, but the joke had racial undertones. I was just so thrown off.
It's all these microaggressions in it that we have to deal with constantly. And you know, you just said something interesting there about like not knowing what to say in that moment. And I think like this happens a lot with people, is that the thing is like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as well to be like, do you know what, if that happened again, I would have done this, this and this. But actually sometimes you don't know what to say in the moment because you're shocked.
You're
Do you know
so
what I mean?
shocked that you can't believe someone's actually been brazen enough to say that to you. And how do you even reply without sounding, you know, like a stereotype? And to be honest, I really don't care like sounding if I sound like a stereotype. So luckily enough, there was someone else there and they heard. So I felt comfortable enough to say, you know, bring it up at a later date and say like that was completely unacceptable, and like, you know, you shouldn't be saying things like that. And they did try and say, oh, it was a joke, but those kind of jokes don't fly with me and they should never fly. So yeah, that was handled. But at the time, like in the moment, it was so just scary and completely flabbergasting, to be honest. I was actually bamboozled. But again, I have had like quite a interesting journey, but a blessed journey as well. Like my team, my managers, like my mentor, everyone has been like so helpful and really tried to push me to, you know, different opportunities and really help me progress within the last like 6 years. So I think the pros have definitely outweighed the cons for me, but that doesn't mean the cons don't exist.
Yeah, and it's important to sometimes highlight those cons, isn't it? But it's good that you felt supported by where you work, because a lot of people don't. So I'm glad to hear that. Alex, talk to me a little bit about your disability. So obviously on your Instagram it says you're type 1 diabetic. Talk to me a bit about that.
Type 1 diabetes, guys, it's not easy. It's not easy. I was diagnosed about 20 years ago now, so I would have been like 8 or 9 years old. I was really young, so my parents managed it for like a certain number of years before I took over, and I was you know, doing my own injections, testing my own blood sugar. But in a nutshell, having diabetes, type 1 anyway, my pancreas is just null and void. It doesn't work at all. It doesn't produce any insulin. So my I'm unable to by myself independently regulate my blood sugars. So I'm managed by insulin. So depending on what I eat, or if I'm doing exercise, or if I'm ill, I'll change my doses based on that. I don't know if you guys can see, but I have like a little sensor on the back of my arm, which has been massively helpful. Like, it's there all the time. I change every 2 weeks, but it doesn't come off in the shower or anything. Like, it's just permanently on. And it's pretty much changed my life, because for years I was, testing my blood sugar by pricking my finger and squeezing the blood and then putting on a little machine, which, you get used to because I've had it for such a long time. But I noticed that my fingers were like hard, and it'd be really hard to squeeze the blood because I've tested my blood sugars for so long, over a number of years. So like the actual state of my hands was getting, really bad. And then I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to reduce the number of times I'm testing my blood sugar, because my fingertips are so hard, which is obviously not the greatest for diabetes, because you need to know constantly what your blood sugar is. And then they brought this out. It's changed my life. So it connects to my phone. And I just tap my phone on it via Bluetooth, and it just tell me what my blood sugar is. There's a little needle in it, so it does hurt when I'm applying it, but it's fine. It's just a little prick, and I think it's revolutionary. But with the diabetes, it has been a journey, I've had like certain complications which are associated with diabetes. So I have problems with my eyes.
You and me both.
Yeah. And the struggle, like, just sometimes I wear glasses and sometimes I wear contact lenses, but there's different things that are associated with like the actual health of my eyes. So I can have like blood spots that will, blur the vision. And sometimes, you're squinting, trying to see. No lens is going to change, that. So that's something that's been quite hard to deal with. I also have another condition, chronic illness called gastroparesis. And essentially my body can't really, it doesn't digest food properly. So I can eat and the food will just sit in my stomach instead of, digesting and going to my intestines. And then obviously you do what you have to do after that. But my body doesn't do that. So instead of digesting the food, it makes me throw up. So sometimes it's hard, I guess, because I really want to eat something, like I'm starving, but I can't, because I know if I eat, I'll throw up. And it's anything. It could be like a glass of water, it will just come out. Soup, eat it, it'll come up. So what I have to do when I'm having an episode is what it's called. Sometimes I'll go to hospital for a period of time. And they'll put a tube through my nose, and it will bypass my stomach and go straight to my intestines. And I'm fed like that, which, it's okay. I'm there usually for like around 2 weeks. So my episodes usually last around like 2 weeks, a week of like throwing up and then a week of recovery. But I'll have the tube, which will feed me during those moments. So, yeah.
And how often do you have those episodes?
Do you know what? Up until maybe last year, I had one at least once a month. So I do 2 weeks in hospital, 2 weeks out of hospital, 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out. And I was doing that for like 2 years. And then last year, I got an artificial pancreas with my diabetes, which is a pump. I'm not wearing it today, but it goes on the back of my arm, and it pumps me with insulin throughout the day without me having to do the injections myself, or, and it connects to like my sensor, and they kind of work together. So I had a pump, and it did kind of improve with that. So I think now it only really happens maybe once every 3 months, which is a vast improvement from 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on. Like, I'm super grateful it's not as often, because I felt like my life came to a bit of a standstill. You're trying to have, you're trying to work, but you can't really work because you're so tired and you're throwing up and all kinds of things. And then, I love my job, but you can't go to events because you're going to vomit, and it's just not, you can't just be in the crowd vomiting, that kind of thing. I mean, you can, but it's not comfortable.
People think you drunk too much.
Yeah, I've had that so many times, and I've got a taxi home, and like, I'm going to vomit. So I'll say, can you stop the cab? Vomit. And they're like,
People don't think that there could be anything other than that, do they?
I did start doing a disclaimer, like when I'd get into a taxi, be like, I've got this condition. This is probably going to happen at some point during the journey home, like, just to let you know I'm not drunk. But even if I was, like, I'm not vomiting in the car. Like, I'm always asking them to stop and I'll get out. But it's just trying to help people understand that there's so many different conditions that affect your body physically, and mentally. So Yeah, that part's been hard to navigate.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And we were speaking about this a little bit before we started recording, but tell me a little bit about your experiences with people, because obviously people can't see that you have a chronic illness. They can't tell. What kind of situations have you gotten into? Because I think for someone like me who's blind, I have a cane, like people can see it straight away. They just know, you know. I feel like it's different, like people have a different approach, but I have a lot of friends with hidden disabilities and they struggle because it's like you're constantly having to explain yourself. But what has your experience been like?
I mean, pretty much the same as your friends. Like, it's hard to... There is one more thing I kind of suffer with, and I've got hip impingements. So I've got very limited mobility in my hips. I can walk fine, but not for a long time. Or I can stand, but just not for a long time.
Yeah.
So, you know, walking upstairs, hard, just all of those kind of things. And I think that's one of the things, like, I've struggled with when trying to, like, physically be out and about, because the diabetes I've had pretty much my whole life. So I don't know any different. So it's just second nature to me. The gastroparesis is a little bit new. I've had that for the last maybe 6 years.
Right.
So I guess it's just, when I go places, just letting people know that, okay, I do have this as well. But when you appear able-bodied, which is what we were speaking about earlier, sometimes I don't know, it's a hard situation to be in, because I always feel like having to justify it doesn't feel comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stigma I'm trying to get rid of, because I didn't speak about my diabetes for years. I just kind of got on with things. But you know, you go to a venue and all of a sudden you can't bring in the sweets or your dextrose tablets. They're like, oh, you know, you can't bring anything in. I'm like, I literally need to have this, because if I, like, you know, I have a hypo, which is when you have low blood sugar, I'm going to need the sweets. It's not a case of, oh, I can just walk back to the entrance and get the sweets. Like, I can't walk.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not coherent when I have one of those things happening.
Yeah.
And just having to explain that all the time, I think there's a real lack of education around all of the different things people can have.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a journey. It's a journey for sure.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? It's about, like, you having to explain yourself to as well, like, so many different people that you come across. I mean, we work in events and stuff, so you're like security guards, things like that, and it's like, as you say, it's not comfortable to have to tell people like what's going on. So obviously that's why we want to, like, raise awareness with this podcast as well, and letting people understand that, listen, you can't always see everything what's going on. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't mean there's not things going on. And actually, when people tell you there's things going on, you need to believe them. Because I think that's another big thing, that people often, like, try and explain to people what's going on, and then they're not always believed.
No.
You mentioned earlier about, you know, there's been periods of time where you've had to be in hospital for 2 weeks and then working for 2 weeks. How does that affect your working life? Because obviously, you know, taking time off, or if you're in the middle of trying to plan something, organise something, it must be quite difficult. And also, like, if you don't know when things are going to happen, how has that been for you? Like, how have your conditions affected your working life?
So at first, I thought it was something I'd be able to manage, you know, independently. I didn't really want to speak to, like, my team about it, because I just felt like, you know, you've got a lot to prove. You're still climbing the ladder in the industry. Like, you don't want anyone to think, oh, Alex can't do this, or, oh, I don't want to bother Alex, or this opportunity's coming, but I'm not going to even involve Alex because I just don't want her to be stressed, kind of thing. And it was also, you know, speaking to my team and managing how they felt about my disabilities as well, you know, saying to them, okay, I'll let you know, like, if I feel like I can't do something, but always never, you know, be scared to say, I need this to be done. Like, do you have the capacity? I feel like it's always important to have that open dialogue. And luckily for me, my team are great. If I'm off, there's always someone to pick something up. I just have to drop them a message. And to be honest, when I was doing 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, there'd be times where I was so ill. There's also times where I'd, like, pass out. So I wasn't even really fully aware that I was having an episode until, like, I wake up in the hospital and I'm like, oh no, it's Monday and it's 4 p.m. and I've not been answering my emails. But if I didn't respond to one of my team members, they'd always know. They're like, okay, Alex hasn't responded in, like, 2-3 hours. She must be having an episode. Let me just get on with this. And that's why I love my team so much. They're literally like family, because they just know now, even before I've had an episode, they can tell, like, I've got a certain type of personality. And, you know, you get on the phone to them, like, you're not right, are you? Like, it's like we have a synergy now. So that at first it was hard to work out because I just felt bad, you know, like I don't want to, I'm doing all of these things and I have all of these tools, but I don't want to offload that on someone else who is equally as busy.
Yeah.
But that's what your team are there for. If one of them was going through something,
100%.
I'm there to pick it up. So it's just been great to have that support. And I know not everyone has that.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that's what makes a good team though, isn't it? Because it's about making reasonable adjustments for people. And clearly, I always feel like if you feel happy and supported in your role, you're going to do a better job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you felt like you can't speak to them, you can't tell them, you know, like it wouldn't work for either of you guys. So I think that's really good. But as you said, like not everyone has that same experience.
A lot of the stuff was new because to me, like having the gastroparesis was like a bit of a shock. When I got diagnosed, I've been ill for ages, like maybe 3-4 months, and I just didn't know what was wrong. So when I was going to the hospital, they were telling me, oh, it's food poisoning or it's a bug, you know, with your stomach. And I'm like, I've been vomiting for like 4 weeks. I feel like a bug doesn't really last that long. And then eventually they did tests and stuff, and then they found that I had a very slow digestive system. But just even like adjusting to that, it's just been more like mentally hard for me because again, you feel like you're impacting other people's lives, like it's your problem, so you deal with it. But like we're a family, we're a team, so you know it's nice to be able to like share that experience with my team. And also, you know, people need to learn in life, like unless you speak about these things and have that open dialogue, how are people going to know?
Yeah.
You know?
100%, but sometimes it's hard, isn't it, to get to that place where you feel comfortable to speak about it in order for people to learn.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's like, and I guess you got to see like the positives in disclosing what's going on. But I think if people hear about people's experiences like yours, then they're more likely to disclose at, you know, wherever they're working, because they'll be like, oh look, like she's doing it and she's got a supportive team and she's like, you know, I think there is a big thing about disclosure.
I understand why people are scared, because you're like thinking, oh, you know, are they gonna fire me for this? Like, you know, you can think that the worst, and really that shouldn't be happening, but I'm sure it's happened, you know. And people having those reservations, you know, they're well within their right. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's a fast-paced industry as well, though, isn't it? The music industry. So it's like, I guess everyone's like, you want to be as good as you can at your job, and no one wants to feel like a problem. But at the end of the day, like, people have got things going on. I wanted to ask you, like, what advice would you give to somebody listening or watching this podcast that has a chronic illness, wants to get into the music industry, but is just a bit nervous, not really sure what roles they can do? Like, what advice would you give them? How would you like encourage them?
I would say, I think first of all, when you apply for jobs, or if you're having an interview, or maybe you're in the stages where you got to the last stages of the interview, or maybe you even got the job, always just believe in yourself, and also having honest conversations with your employer about your abilities is always helpful, because there's nothing worse than trying to push yourself outside of your capabilities, because then you're unable to, you know, kind of work to your, I guess, to your best. And I think that's something I definitely did, and I totally regret it, because why was I pushing myself beyond my means, you know? I think having honest conversations, like, I can do X amount of days in the office, or I get tired because of this, and this is what I need you to put in place for me. And employers should do that for you. Like, I know discrimination definitely exists, but it's always better to be honest, because then you're not overexerting yourself beyond what you can actually do. And health is really important. So, and I think that comes before any job.
100%. I agree. Alex, do you think, like, is there any like message that you would send to the industry itself, to people that are employing people? What would you say to them? What do you think needs to change?
I think if I was to give a message to people who are, you know, employing people of different capabilities, I'd say educate yourself on whatever disability it is that people are maybe coming to you to speak about, and just in general, because it's always better to have a wealth of knowledge than to know nothing at all. And I think as human beings, we're always learning. You know, things change, and it's nice to learn, but no man's an island as well. We're all here to work together, and that's how we become stronger. So I think, you know, having that sense of community around disability and accessibility is really important, and looking into ways that you can kind of change you know, office dynamic and people's ignorance, people's education, even, you know, things like having a sufficient ramp in the workspace for people who are unable to use the stairs. Just little changes like that can make the workplace so much more comfortable just for everybody, because, you know, we're all different.
Yeah, we are all different. And the thing is as well, is like anything can happen to anyone at any point. And I think people sometimes forget that. A lot of the time, if something doesn't directly affect you, you just kind of don't worry about it. But I think it's really important, if you are like an employer in the music industry, to remember that, like, you don't want to miss out on talent, you know, just because maybe there's people that are worried about applying for jobs or speaking about what they are actually going through. So yeah, I don't want anyone to miss out on the amazing talent that there is.
And it's like, you know, inclusivity is so important. Like, why should people be frozen out because they don't fit, you know, the quota or the standard that you have in a certain place? And not everywhere's like that. There's a lot of positive spaces for you know, disabled people, but there needs to be more. There needs to be way more, because in the music industry, like, I could you know, pull out the stats, and they're probably very I mean, I know they're very shocking because I was looking at them the other day. But, you know, things need to change, and I think it's just important to, like, make that a priority.
100%. And hopefully the report, Unseen, Unheard, and this podcast helps start that conversation, because that's what it is. It's just a conversation that, well, many conversations probably that need to happen. But Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
me today.
It's been a great chat.
It really has. Guys, as I said, check out Alex's Instagram, okay? And check out mine too. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, check us out.
Our names are Joy and Alex, not Fine Babes. Deal with it. Alex, thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this episode of Unseen, Unheard. If you would like more information on the report, please go to the Attitude is Everything's website or the Black Lives in Music's website, where you can read the whole report and find out more.